All right, Rabbi say, let us begin. We are picking up Emeretz Hashem and Os Nun Gimel in Reb Tzaddik. So we're gonna continue in this piece. Emeretz Hashem in the coming days. We'll start some in Yonei Pesach, but here Reb Tzaddik continues really on this fascinating trajectory. So if you take a look, we're page Kuf Chaf Vav. Let's pick up with the Be'uri HaChasidus on the left hand column. It says La'el his Ba'er. Ki kol echad nivra letikun ezo davar prati asher bonis yachdo nafsho beprat. Kan yizbar. So remember in Os Mem Tes, what the Tzaddik said is that every person is created in order to go ahead and literally letaking, to fix, to remedy, to address one specific thing that is highlighted in his neshamas. Remember again, the way Reb Tzaddik illustrated this was every person, although many of us struggle with many things, often most of us have one thing which we struggle with acutely. That one struggle is the very tachlis, is the very purpose of my existence. And if I'm able to be matakin, I'm able to go ahead and address that struggle, that actually can become my greatest strength. So Reb Tzaddik goes on, he says, Kan yisbar shemiyuchados zu Nikeres gam besignon hadibor shakol echad ve'echad. So Reb Tzaddik is going to posit that an individual's singularity, person's singularity, uniqueness, comes out ultimately again through his speech as well. So let's analyze. We'll say the truth is also continuing from the previous os. In Nun Beis, Reb Tzaddik highlighted the idea that a person has a certain innate kedusha which is not subject to change, or there's innate kedusha which cannot be damaged or tarnished as a result of inappropriate behavior. The idea that there's a kedusha atzmis, there's just a personalistic holiness which we each possess, which by definition is there no matter what wrong decisions we make. We're going to see now in Nun Gimel that Reb Tzaddik is really going to build on that theme as well. So look what he writes. Afilu dibur shelchol. This is really a beautiful observation. Afilu dibur shelchol amurgal b'fi adam. Even just what he calls dibur shelchol, general speech, which a person, which people talk every day. Okay, he goes on. He says, Hainu piskam v'dibur chulin ba'alma she'en bo divrei Torah. He's talking about general speech, right? The way a person talks each and every day, not words of Torah, just general, what he calls sichas chulin, regular mundane talk. Now he's specifically talking about something. We'll say sometimes each of us has things that are our common adages, right? Our common phrases or common statements that we often share. He says, "K'moshe Chazal machnim piskam kigonzeh margola bepumei." So in the Gemara, you'll often have the expression of margola bepumei. Margola bepumei literally means margola is a jewel or a gem, bepumei in the mouth of. So that's the way Chazal say margola bepumei means a common expression. A common expression. Now the truth is when Chazal use it, they often use it not just as a common expression, but a common expression which possesses much wisdom. So margola bepumei, a jewel in the mouth of people, a common expression which contains much wisdom. Davar ze ragil befiv. So I'm in page Kuf Chav Zayin. So Reb Tzaddik quotes from Rashi and Berachos. What does it mean, margola bepumei? This means something that a person is accustomed to say. Al af shu dvar chulin b'chol zos hu nechshav ledivrei Torah mamish. Now, Bosi, here Reb Tzaddik says something absolutely amazing. He says sometimes when Chazal will quote this idea of margola bifumei, right, a jewel, a common expression, so Chazal aren't quoting divrei Torah, right? They're not per se quoting divrei Torah. They're just quoting a common expression. Yet the quoting common expression in the context of the Gemara, they're quoting a common expression and they're using that quotation in a halachic discussion or in a hashkafic discussion. So what you see is something amazing. You see a common everyday expression that is becoming included in the Gemara and often being used to go ahead and highlight or bolster or bring out a halachic point, a hashkafic point, divrei musar. See, he says something amazing. Alaf shu chulin, even though again the statement that the Gemara is quoting is chulin, is not the statement that's being quoted is not Torah. Nevertheless, hu nechshav ledivrei Torah mamish. Ultimately, again, it's being quoted as divrei Torah. I will say, remember again, we actually just had this. We had this just a week ago or so in Daf Yomi, where the Gemara quoted. What was the context? What was the context? It was before Arvei Pesachim, where the Gemara said that if a word is worth one sela, then shtika is worth two. Oh, it was the case. It was the last Mishnah before Arvei Pesachim, right? The last Mishnah where we spoke about the individual. I'm sorry, let me just find it because it's a good illustration. If you remember again, this was the case. Yeah, this was the case where the Chabura, they lost the Karban Pesach, right? One of the Chevra went out to go ahead and find the Pesach. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I forgot. Huh, I forgot to record. All right. No. Forgot to put on airplane mode. It's a crazy time when you get text messages at 5:50 in the morning. But, okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, so we're speaking about the idea that if you have a chabura and the chabura goes ahead and loses their Pesach, they send out one of the members of the chabura to go ahead and look for it. So also remember again, we had this whole Mishnah. There was a discussion, but then they end up finding a replacement animal, shechting a replacement animal. So there's a whole discussion about, well, which animal is used for the Karban Pesach, who uses what. So the Mishnah gave a case where, let's say again, the Chabura has the Karban Pesach. They lost the Karban Pesach. Reuven goes out to find the Karban. In the interim, the Chabura appoints a new Karban, sets aside a new Karban. And then Mishnah said, if neither party said anything to the other, right? Reuven didn't say anything to the Chabura. In other words, pretty much he acted unilaterally. The Chabura didn't say anything to Reuven. So what's the halacha? Reuven uses the Karban Pesach that he found. The Chabura uses the replacement Karban Pesach and Shalom al Yisrael. So the Gemara points out the idea that there's something very profound when people don't talk to each other. There's a profundity when people talk, and there's a profundity when people are silent. So the Gemara, this was on Tzaddik Tesman Dalek, said, Mikanam ru chachamim, yafesh tika lechachamim, kal v'chomer l'tipshim. Right? Right. So from here, the wise men said, so silence is good for wise men. Kal v'chomer halachas kam, all the more so for fools. So here's a perfect example of where you see. Now again, is that a statement of Torah? Is that a religious statement? Is that no? So it's a life statement. It was quite fascinating about this, and you find this all the time, where the Gemara will quote something. Sometimes it'll quote it with the introduction of Margola Bepumei, a jewel, right, or a gem in the mouth of people. So you'll see the Gemara will quote statements, and again, that's not a statement of Torah. That's a statement of life wisdom, Yet, interestingly enough, remember, it's brought down in the midst of a halachic discussion, and it's brought as we'll call it as a proof to a halachic discussion. So Hatzadik says, what do you see from here? He says, Afilu dibur kazeh haragil eitzel ish hahamoni va'pashut biyosem Yisrael. See again a statement that is a simple statement. It happens to be in this time the Gemara was quoting the sages. But many times when the Gemara does this, it's not quoting a sage, right? It's not quoting anyone of particular piety. Often, Margala Bepumei de Inshi is just a thing that people say all of the time. He goes on, he says, you find this very often throughout the Gemara. Shemevi b'Gemara esmad da Amri Inshi, where the Gemara will quote that which regular people say. Sha'anoshim regilim lomar. V'divrei Torah, and ultimately, again, when it's quoted by the Gemara, is quoted in the context, or the quotation actually makes it into divrei Torah. Mechivan shekol min chachma da'amri inshi rakshu chachma amitis usvas emes hiram zabatorah. Ukimo kemuvan parakama de Sanhedrin harbe piskamim shel hahu dahava ka'amar va'azil. So, for example, he quotes over here. We'll see some examples of this. That the Gemara Masechah Sanhedrin quotes the idea, or quotes many sayings, just quotes sayings in the name of people, right? This was something that people were accustomed to say. Adam echad haya ragil, lomar piskam kach v'kach, va'amar Shmuel ala piskam ahu, krok siv. So hari sha'av, let me just read 2 more lines. Hari sha'av shabala piskam, lo yada sheyesh ledvarav mekar b'Torah, apa pikin gila Shmuel shem divrei Torah, ve'yesh lahavi smach u'mekar ledvarim min haTorah. So this is fascinating. So he quotes over here, we'll see this inside a bit more tomorrow, but Tzaddik quotes from the Gemara Masechah Sanhedrin, and the Gemara Masechah Sanhedrin quotes just a number of pitgamim, right? A number of sayings of just regular people, right? Regular people used to say this, used to say that. And what Shmuel would then do is something fascinating, is he would take these regular sayings of ordinary people, and he would say, oh, there's a pasuk that supports this idea. So Tzaddik says, so you see something fascinating developing over here. You see Chazal taking quotations of ordinary, everyday people, what we call margula bepume, a jewel, right, a gem in the mouth of an individual. We see again Gemara Masechah Sanhedrin quoting in the Gemara statements of regular, everyday people, and then we find Shmuel going ahead and saying, oh, by the way, those statements that you thought was an ordinary statement, there's a Gemara, there's a pasuk, there's a Mishnah, there's different, again, sources of halacha and hashkafa and Torah that support these very assertions. So we'll say, what does this mean, right? What's the deeper meaning of this? What does this mean that ultimately, again, the Gemara is quoting from regular people? And Meir Hashem will stop over here, we'll pick up with this idea tomorrow. So we'll understand, Reb Tzaddik is going to develop this quite beautifully and dramatically as a continuation of that which was said in the previous os, as well as building what I think is just an incredible paradigm for us going forward. We'll stop over here. Shkoyach.